This video is brought to you by Squarespace. Welcome back, everyone. It is time once again to look at some viewer mail today. These are all projects sent in by viewers like you. Before we get going, I do want to make mention of one thing. My next workshop is going to be in New York City, April 4th through 6th, 2005. This is called Dancer as Motif. You should join us. It's going to be awesome. There's a few slots left. Basically, this is going to be a dance-oriented workshop. You won't be dancing. We will have dancers there. You will be photographing. You'll be learning from me as well as my co-teacher, Alexandra Light, who is a ballet dancer at the Texas Ballet Theater here in Fort Worth, and she is also an amazing choreographer. So I will put a link in the show description if anyone is interested. But without further ado, let's get to some viewer work today. This first zine is very special. This is an amazing piece of work. This is called Te Espero al Otro Lado del Tiempo, which translates to I will wait for you till the end of time. This comes to us from the brother-sister duo of Arantza Peralta and her brother Adrian Peralta. Full disclosure, Arantza and Adrian took my zine workshop, and this was the piece that they worked on, and I'm super excited to share this with you. I have not seen anything like this in any of my workshops. It really is amazing. So I think the best way to get you into this is a very highly conceptual piece, and I'm going to read from the intro here because there's a story that goes with the images as a narrative, and it begins. Dialogue of light and shadow. This photographic project explores how lived experiences intertwine in remote corners, tracing a map from our window to the human experience. It is a journey that begins with anticipation and signals the arrival of an inevitable storm. The visual dialogue emerges between the intimate and the collective, a murmur that connects disparate geographies and invites us to reflect on how we navigate change. Ordinary moments transform into rituals that seek to connect with the vastness, uncovering a shared language. We extend an invitation to reflect on what it means to live, weaving our individual stories into a shared fabric. All right, so as I mentioned, Arantza and Adrian are a brother-sister duo. Adrian lives in Washington, D.C., and Arantza is in Mexico. They came to me with this concept, and I contributed a little bit in terms of direction, but this was all them, and they did an absolutely wonderful job. A couple things that I wanted to point out. I think having a narrative and a story in here is really interesting, and I love the whole engagement with the storm and the birds. These spreads are absolutely wonderful. The images are highly dramatic. Another thing that I'd like to point out is the way that they've handled layout on here. Sometimes we have full bleed images. Sometimes things butt up next to the corners. They've done a wonderful job of letting the layout, not in a super obvious way, but in a subtle way, support the narrative and create tension sometimes with the viewer. I think this is really exceptional in the way this is relayed. And I think that also this is difficult because it's a narrative that they came up with, so it's highly interpretive. It's telling you a story as it goes through. So none of these images are necessarily literal, but as a group, they start to tell you the story that they came up with. And I think they've just done a really interesting and exceptional job on here. Great mix of black and white and color images. And one other thing that, just a small point that I want to make there, is that a lot of times I get zines from photographers who feel like they need to label every image. They didn't here, and that was something that was by design. They left it highly interpretive just to be able to read the images. And then if you do want to know where these are shot, they just did an index in the back. Anyway, I will link up to this below. Adrian and Arantza, you should be very proud of this. You've done an excellent job. This is tough doing a narrative piece, and so you guys need to support your fellow photographers and check out their work. I believe they are selling this, so awesome job. I'm super proud of you both. Okay, next up is this wonderful little book that is done by a photographer named Robert James, as well as a poet named Phil Harris. This is called Opera in the Dark. Robert sent this in, and he enclosed a note, and I'm going to paraphrase a little bit of this. Basically, he started his career directing film, documentaries, doing video work, and he's moved into photography. It started during the pandemic, and then also, unfortunately, to his diagnosis with Parkinson's disease, and I'm very sorry to hear that. But anyway, he's gone from working with a film crew into just kind of being a solo operator, but I love the fact that he's collaborated with somebody who writes the poems that are in here. I do want to share a little bit of this that describes it. Anyway, he writes, Phil Harris and I have been friends since we were children. We grew up together through our teenage years in university. We were the best man at each other's wedding. Then the demands of our careers set us in different directions. I lived in London with a busy international filmmaking practice, and Phil worked as a university lecturer in Cardiff. Years went by with little contact. About 3 years ago, we met for lunch and discovered that just as I had developed a passion for black and white photography, Phil had become passionate about writing poetry. One of us was making pictures out of light, while the other was making pictures with words. We saw this as an opportunity to begin a new dialogue in which we would collaborate on a photography project, uniting Phil's words and my images. We agreed to produce 20 poems and photos for publication and exhibition. Now we are ready to show our first publication, Opera in the Dark. I would love to hear your comments. Thanks again for your great contribution to the development of photographers like myself. Best wishes, Robert. Okay, Robert, this is really nicely done. I love the title, Opera in the Dark. I'm going to make a couple comments on here. I think your photographs are wonderful. I love the fact that you're engaging in a collaboration with an old friend of yours and you have a mutual interest in this project. I think it works really well. Another thing I love is the typography has a design to it that sort of follows what's going on in the image. I think that's really well done. I'm going to let your use of Comic Sans go for now, but I do think the typography is excellent. And I like the way that you're varying up your images. Your aspect ratios change a lot in here. You've got panoramic images, you've got square images. There's a lot of drama in here. I love the black and whites. This is really nicely done. I'm sorry to hear about the Parkinson's diagnosis, but it sounds like you have kind of got a project here that's helping, at least on a therapy level, get you through it. And I think this is really nicely done. And I will link up to Robert and Phil's work below. Please check out Opera in the Dark. It is quite awesome. All right, so a few more projects. There's 2 zines in here that deal with street photography and this really interesting documentary project on ex-Soviet Georgia called Western Promises. But first, I want to give a shout out to our sponsor this week, who are the always awesome folks over at Squarespace.
How easy is it to build an amazing website in a matter of minutes? Squarespace has you covered. It's dead simple. Head over to Squarespace, hit Get Started. You can start by using Squarespace Blueprint AI and SEO tools, which will give you an impressive website in no time. Something unique because, you're not like other websites. Give your site a name. Next, you can build your homepage. We'll start with a few preset layouts just to get us going. Want to sell products like prints, books, maybe you make a zine? Well, you can feature those on your homepage. Create a few more sections if you want. Let's also give it a color palette. There's a whole bunch to choose from. Just get us started. We can change this all later. Next, let's select the typography choices. Welcome to your website. Everything is set up and it's all ready for you to customize. Squarespace is built on Fluid Engine, the next generation of website design. Select Edit, and Fluid Engine allows you to drag, place, and resize any element on the page. You can snap these to a grid, you can make them float on top of one another, you can freeform however you like. You can even preview and adjust how the site looks on either desktop or mobile. The layouts are independent. Of course, you'll want a portfolio for your work. Creating an image gallery is as easy as dropping a folder of images on your web browser. Once uploaded, you can drag to resort, customize the look, and Squarespace writes all of the code for you. Everything just works and it looks fabulous. Want to sell your own prints, books, or zines? Flexible payments allow you to make the checkout process absolutely seamless when you sell products or services. You can accept credit cards, PayPal, Apple Pay, and in eligible countries, you can offer customers the option to buy now and pay later with Afterpay and ClearPay. You should try Squarespace for yourself. It's absolutely free, no credit card required. Just go to squarespace.com/AOP, sign up for that free trial. If you decide Squarespace is right for you, I can save you an additional 10% on your order by using offer code AOP on checkout. That's right, the code is AOP. So stop procrastinating, go build your website today. And I want to give a special shout out and thanks to Squarespace for sponsoring this video.
All right, so next up is this little zine that comes to us from Phillip Hamilton. This is called Street Therapy Volume 1, Between Here and There. He didn't include a note, but I will read a little of his intro here, which reads, "In my opinion, street photography is therapeutic. Street photography allows me to be fully engaged with the here and now, completely focused on the world around me. Being a business owner, entrepreneur, husband, father, son, friend, man of God, I cherish the moments that I am able to dive into my racing thoughts and strategically place them where they need to be. I'm sure others that wear many hats understand that moments of solitude are the vibe. Street photography is that for me. Enjoyment, the moment, the world around me, the architecture, disconnection from the media, the people, the noise, the weather, the energy of the city, and the life that it brings." So Phillip, I think that the architectural work for me is the strongest stuff in here. I think you've got a really interesting eye for light, shadow, shape, contrast, and how you're incorporating that into the work that you're doing. The one thing that I would encourage you to do is on your people shots. A lot of them, you have an interesting scene that's set up, and then you have a figure that's just sort of in the scene. And I think that if you slow down and be a little more patient and wait, you're going to end up with images that give you a little bit more payoff within what the figure is doing within the image. That's the only complaint that I have with this. It's the tough part about street photography because you're trying to be in the moment and be seen, or excuse me, as a photographer, you're not to be seen, but be able to engage with these intimate moments with people as they are. But visually, they do need more of a payoff. But I really like the work that you're doing. I think this is an excellent start. And I will link up to Phillip in the show description below. Make sure you check him out. It's really cool to see some cool stuff in Dallas. So thanks for sending. All right, so next up is another zine. This one is called You Are Not Alone. This comes to us from Willie Velasquez. Willie's got a note here, which reads, "Greetings from the world's borough, Ted. I've been a fan of the channel for a while now and have learned a lot. So first and foremost, thank you for putting the knowledge out there. I am a New York City street photographer, going 5-ish years now with no prior background or education in photography, just an addictive personality and a desire for growth. I told myself I'd send a copy if I ever printed a zine one day, and that day has come. I put You're Not Alone together in collaboration with @TourDogs and @Chemistry Publishing. Instagram handles, I'll put them in the show description. And I'm very happy with the response it's received so far. It is my first publication, and as ambiguous as it may be, everything from the photos to the sequence to the cover art is an expression of myself as an artist and the world that I live in. Any feedback from you is appreciated. Thanks in advance, Willie." So Willie, this is nicely done. I really love your style of shooting. I love the colors that are in here, and I like the fact that you're using wider angle lenses and getting up close to people. I know sometimes that makes people uncomfortable, as seen in some of these images, but it does give you a different feel, and it gets the viewer right in with the people that you're photographing. And I also love the way that you've interspersed text messages in here too. It makes for a really interesting zine, a really interesting layout. And I think this is one of the possibilities that I like about street photography a lot, is that there are different ways that you can do it. I think Phillip's book, the last one we looked at, has one style and one way of going at it, and this is a different focal length and a different angle and a different way of seeing. And I think this is really well done. And I love the way that you paid attention to the spreads, how the images relate to each other. So Willie, nicely done. I will link up to you in the show description. Thanks for sending. All right, so next up is a zine called Western Promises. This comes to us from Ben Rook. Ben has a note which reads, "Dear Ted, I'm a photographer, writer, and zine maker, originally from Brighton in the UK, but currently living on the road. I've watched your channel for years, and you never fail to inspire or give me something to think about. I made this zine during a 3-month stay in ex-Soviet Georgia last year. In this project, I explore the Georgian relationship with their former emperor-ruler, their solidarity with Ukraine, and their determination to reinvent their country and join the European community. Hope you enjoyed the zine. Any feedback would greatly be appreciated. All the best, Ben." So Ben, this is really well done. It has a really nice documentary feel to it. I love the images where you incorporate things like the dog. I think your people images are really strong. I want to point out something to you, though, that I think the best image in this whole thing is this one. And I think when you're able to envelop things that are cultural in with something that's very personal, and first of all, there's 2 ways you're doing that. First of all, it's highly suggestive of what's going on here with the icon, the religious nature of this. Also, the focal length. You're using a longer focal length to get up close. It is very intimate, and this is the kind of work I want to see a lot more of. I think you've got a great documentary style, but a lot of times when I see pictures of things like buildings or cars, they're interesting to me, but I think what I want to do is see you get up close and a little more intimate personally with the culture around it. This is another great image, and of course it's something that you can't ignore in our culture today, the ever-presence of phones in the scene, but very well done. I think you're on a really good start with this, and I'd just love to see more of your work. So if you guys want to check this out, I will link it in the show description below. I want to thank everyone for sending stuff in today, and if you have any questions, please drop them in the comments. I'll catch you guys in the next video. Until then, later.